It's time for the latest in the world of K-sports. We have a World Cup qualifier to look into, as well as the Premier 12 baseball with sportscaster Jason Lee. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, Jason. It's so good to see you on Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit earlier this week than usual.
So, Jason, let's start with soccer, as Korea will play against Palestine tonight at 11 p.m. Korea time for a World Cup qualifying match. Now, last Thursday it was when South Korea won 3-1 against Kuwait, and with that having 4 straight wins. So let's first start about that significant game.
Yeah, certainly Korea was, I thought, very worthy of the 3-1 score that they were able to win by. I think certainly they could have scored a few more goals. Lee Jae-sung hit the crossbar as well. Lee Kang-in missed a wide open net as he was just a little bit wide. But certainly Korea had 3 goals and looked very good against Kuwait overall. Kuwait also hit the post and, of course, scored a goal. So it was an entertaining game all around. And, of course, when you're talking about Korea's national team soccer, the name that everyone wants to ask or wonder about is Son Heung-min. He did get the start in the game and played until midway through the second half when he was eventually subbed off. And he scored a goal in this game just 19 minutes in. It was on a penalty kick. However, he was the one that earned the penalty kick as well. So he went into the box, he drove through. He probably would have scored if he wasn't taken down inside the box. So he was definitely worthy of the penalty and the goal that he eventually did score. Beyond that, I thought he played well. I think he really brought chemistry to the team, and I think his injury seems to be behind him. It's been, a month that he's been able to play kind of through the injury. So the fact that he was back on, played, a half and a half of the second half, still looked pretty good. Also in the game, scoring a goal was the mayor. Oh Se-hoon. It's the nickname that they've given Oh Se-hoon. Of course, he shares the same name as Seoul's mayor. But he scored a great goal on a header. And I thought it was not only a great goal, but I really like the upside of this kid. He's 25 years old. He doesn't get the same attention as a lot of the European players that, the Koreans playing in Europe right now. He's playing in Japan, 25 years old. He's 6'5", 6'4", so maybe about 195 centimeters. He's got good height. He's really good, especially in the air. So Korea needs a player like that to really get his head on the ball, and he was able to prove that, scoring the first goal in the game in the 10-minute mark. So that gave Korea a 2-0 lead early on, and they were able to coast to a 3-1 victory overall.
Yes, it was really an entertaining game, as you said, with these 3 different players having these different kinds of goals. And Bella, I think you watched the game too, because you are a big sports fan.
Yes, I love soccer especially, so I definitely, try to watch all the games, especially related to Korea games related to World Cup. And there were so many close, calls, as you mentioned. And I was especially very happy to see Sonny's 찰칵. Yes, the celebration. So that was very entertaining. And now we have another game tonight that will be held. And it's not going to be held in Korea or Palestine, but in Jordan. And I guess it's because of the conflict that's happening there?
Yeah, of course. There's a bit of a military conflict going on in the Palestine area. So certainly for the safety of everyone involved, they've chosen to play all of the Palestinian games this round of the World Cup qualifying at a neutral ground. And they will be playing in Jordan for this particular game. Now, Korea, of course, beat Jordan in Jordan 2-0 previously. So this is a field that Korea is familiar with. And normally, if you're playing on the road, then the home team has an advantage. So this has been taken away from Palestine to a certain degree, but it should be familiar ground for both teams. And I think what's interesting is in this round of World Cup qualifying, the 5 other countries that Korea is playing against, they're all Middle Eastern countries. So they all have similar turf that they're playing on. Rather than playing in Southeast Asia or in Japan or Hong Kong, all of these road games for Korea, they're being played in similar situation or climate. So I think it should be easy for them to adjust after just playing in Kuwait recently. As for Palestine, though, do note that this is the only team that Korea has not beaten in this round. So you mentioned, Korea's won 4 straight games, but the only game that they did not win in this round of the qualifying was a 0-0 tie with Palestine. That was the first game that Hong Myung-bo coached after taking over when they played at Seoul World Cup Stadium. And after that game, there were a lot of boos. There were a lot of people that were concerned about how Hong Myung-bo was given his position, as well as the performance on the field. It really was not up to snuff in that particular game. Scoreless draw. And I might add, though, Palestine, their style of play, they try to play for the scoreless draw. They want to keep the game scoreless for as long as possible, and then ideally, maybe with about 15, 20 minutes to go, try to pounce on an opportunity or, get the team when they're able to make a mistake, right? If they're hoping for the other team to make a mistake as they get anxious before the game's over, and then try to pounce on a situation like that. So hopefully Korea can make sure that they're not making any mistakes. Don't get over anxious. Ideally, they'd like to get a 2-0 lead somewhere before the second half so you can get Son Heung-min another rest in the second half, bring in some of the other younger players to get them experience. But at the same time, they shouldn't push too hard because that's what Palestine wants.
I see. I mean, just by looking at the world rankings, people might think that Korea, has a bigger chance ahead of Palestine. And I guess that's also why maybe Hong Myung-bo has been criticized for that result before. And also, I want to mention athletes of conflict-stricken countries all in a number of international games do feel the impact. But I have to say, regardless of that, I'm really excited about the game, South Korea against Palestine, here in Korea, 11 p.m. and Jordan, of course, 4 p.m. local time. So that's soccer. Let's turn to baseball, Jason. The first round of the Premier 12 is over. Let's start with how Korea did.
Yeah, they didn't do as they would have liked, obviously. They finished 3rd in the end. So they lost to both Japan as well as Chinese Taipei. They defeated Cuba, the Dominican Republic, as well as Australia. So they end up finishing in 3rd place. It's certainly not the result that they would have liked to have had, but at the same time, they didn't send their A team. In fact, none of the teams really did. Each of the countries were sending younger players or lesser known players. There weren't any Major League Baseball players or certainly any regular MLB players in this tournament for the most part. Everyone were minor leaguers or domestic league players for their respective countries and stuff. So I think Korea in this case, it's not the result that they would have liked to have had, but they also had a lot of injuries that led up to this that probably you could point the finger at.
Such as injuries by Samsung players.
Won Tae-in, that's right, as well as Koo Ja-wook.
Right.
So both of them were injured during the Korean series and the KBO playoffs respectively. So without them, I think, it kind of hamstrung the Korean national team a little bit.
So it is unfortunate it's not the best result that we've hoped for. What do you think were the biggest issue for Korea then?
I think clearly, as I mentioned, I think injuries were part of it. Not having Won Tae-in, not having Koo Ja-wook. They didn't send any of their veteran players as well because they want the younger players to have experience. Looking forward to 2026, which is going to be the next World Baseball Classic, as well as 2028, which is the next Olympic Games that will have baseball in Los Angeles. But having said that, I think clearly I am a little bit concerned when it comes to Korea's pitching. Their starting pitching in particular, they really don't have the dominant arms that they've had in the past. If you look at the previous generation or the previous cycle, you could say, of pitchers that Korea had with, Ryu Hyun-jin or, Kim Kwang-hyun or even Yang Hyun-jung. These are pitchers that were able to carry a national squad on a higher level of baseball, not just the KBO, but in terms of international play. These are pitchers that have been able to handle teams like Japan or Chinese Taipei. But if you're looking at the current crop of Korean pitchers, I don't know that they're really at that same level. like Korea's top pitcher right now, I would say, is Anu Jin. Now, the problem with him, however, is he's just had surgery and has not pitched the last year. But on top of that, he's probably Korea's most talented pitcher, but he's had some off-field issues with some bullying accusations when he was in high school. And I think Korea's been reluctant to use him on the international stage because of that. But we'll see whether or not he's eventually able to play for the national team or not. But he would be a key later on. And then the other player I would say is Moon Dong-ju, who's a youngster at just 20 years of age. He was injured, which is why he did not compete in this Premier 12. But hopefully he'll be ready for 2026 and 2028. And ideally, he'll have developed a little bit more over the next couple of years to become a force for Korea. But beyond those two, I really do question if they have the top-end talent in pitching that they've had in the past.
And also, Jason, I think one of the highlights was Kim Do-young, especially in the game against Australia. What did you think about his performance?
Kim Do-young, okay, so if we're going to take a silver lining from Korea not moving on to the next round in the tournament, clearly the biggest highlight was Kim Do-young. Yeah, he had 2 home runs against Cuba and then another home run against Australia. He absolutely brought the smack on. He had 3 home runs, hit about 417, I think. His OPS was 1.5. So the key here is you have a star player that had a breakout season in the KBO this year. But how is he going to do on a bigger stage? Like the international stage here where he's like up against the top players from other teams. How is he going to do? Is he going to rise to the occasion? Is he going to be a leader on this national team where the next generation are going to be looking up to a guy like him to be the offensive leader of the team in 2026 and 2028? He was able to do that in flying colors. 3 home runs in 4 games. He had 7 hits in the 4 games as well. So really showing that he's capable, that the stage was not too big for him, and ideally, perhaps being even a big leader for the younger players as well.
Lots to look out for in the world of baseball athletes. And we're also looking forward to our next sports segment with you, Jason. Thank you for today.
Look forward to it as well.
And thank you, Bella, as always. I'll see you back on Thursday.
I'll see you on Thursday.